Danny Gaffon here for ESBR Boxing. It's a pleasure to have with me David Jamieson, who takes on Chev Clarke in Eliminator for the British Cruiserweight title on June the 10th, Wembley Arena. David, huge fight for you and a big platform in the zone. You must be buzzing.
Yeah, this is the one we've been waiting for. This is the one I've been shouting for a long time. Proper notice, a proper camp doesn't get any bigger than the platform that we're on. I think it's Sonny Edwards tops the bill.
Yeah.
And it's the same night as Josh Taylor. So you know yourself, everybody will be sitting and watching our card and then staying up for the Josh Taylor card. So there'll be some serious amounts of viewers on that.
We'll come on to the fight with Chev in itself briefly. Just want to go back, if you don't mind, sort of 6 months. I think it's coming up to now. The fight with Mikel Lawal. We spoke about before that. You got the fight on, what was it, 10 days notice. You were in there against the house fighter, so to speak, in Mikel. No one gave you much of a chance. I don't think I'm being remiss in saying that. The bookies had you a wide underdog, and sort of to cut a long story short, you gave Mikel all he can handle and then some. A lot of people had you up on the cards, sort of going into the last third of the fight before you suffered what looked like pretty brutal jaw injury, and then retired at the end of the 8th round. So, sort of two questions in one here. How was it for you in like the hours and days following the loss to Mikel? And do you look back now that a bit of time's passed and maybe look at the fight and the whole event and the circumstances surrounding it and maybe take some more positives from it?
Yeah, well, I mean, in the immediate hours after it, I get blue lighted to Royal London Hospital, and shout out to all the staff at Royal London Hospital. They could not have been any better with me, and I had a sort of long, emotional night in there. I saw pretty every hour of the clock. Obviously, adrenaline was still pumping. And my wife and like my trainers and stuff, they couldn't stay with us, so it was just myself. I can't actually remember the nurse's name, but she was really good with us. So I sat in there all night, questioned what I was going to do. Was this the end? Went up and down like a yo-yo, that sort of stuff. Went in for the surgery the next morning. And a couple of days passed, and then I just couldn't wait to get back on the horse. I watched the fight back. I saw obviously the account I gave of myself. I knew I'd proved to myself in my head that I belong at this level. And I was right on the phone to my manager. I was just champing at the bit, as they say, to get a proper crack of the whip. You know, I go at one of these guys on the platform, as you say, with like a proper camp behind me and stuff like that. And I kept chapping. I get back in. I got another win against a Greek boy a couple of months ago, and here we are. It's just testament to staying in the gym, staying focused, and like really remembering what you set out to do when you started this. Don't get sidetracked. Don't get scunnered. And here we are. We're 3 weeks out for the biggest fight of my life, and a British title eliminator.
Absolutely. Just on the jaw injury itself, you mentioned you had surgery there. I mean, I remember watching it when I saw it, thinking he'll be out for a while here. I remember Josh Warrington suffered a pretty bad break of the jaw and was out for, I think, close to a year. But you, as you say, you managed to get back out in March up in a show up in Scotland. So how was the whole rehabilitation and recovery process?
There wasn't much of a rehabilitation process. It was just really like talking to the surgeons. It was very tight and very sore for a long time. Obviously, I've got a titanium plate now fitted in the jaw. And the camp for the boy against the Greek lad, as I say, I'm always trying to be as transparent about this. It wasn't the best at all. We were waiting for the word from the surgeons when we could start sparring. We got the green light at the 10-week mark. The jaw held up in sparring. It got enough clatters, and it was fine. And then in the fight again, it just felt very strange and very tight. And believe it or not, it got a bad knock in the third round against the Greek lad. And since then, I don't know whatever's happened, if it's displaced some scar tissue or whatever it's done. Since that fight, it's actually been great. It's like you would never know. There was always a tightness. They explained to me it was a scar tissue thing that was feeling was tight. Since that since that left hook landed on it, it's been absolutely sound. So no, it's not even in the forefront of my mind now. But previously, I was always conscious of it. See now, you wouldn't even know.
Bit of old-fashioned medicine from that Greek fella then.
I know, no, because folk were laughing. That's what I was saying, because it just felt very tight, and you could feel it as well. There was like a big set of ball, and I thought that was going to remain there. So whether that was scar tissue or fluid or whatever it was, but when that left hook landed on it, and then it was just like, oh no, I thought for a second, is it away? And I had to sort of try and move it to make sure. And then in the days that followed the fight, it all just sort of loosened up, and it's been absolutely fine.
It's good to hear, mate. On to the fight with Chev on June the 10th. We touched on the lack of notice you had for the fight with Mikel Lawal back in November. As we said, you've had a lot better notice of this. You've had time for a full camp. It might sound like a bit of a stupid question, but I remember you saying you'd been in the gym and you were in good shape going into the Mikel fight regardless. But how much of a difference does it make, not only in the getting physically prepared for a fight, but being able to actually sort of formulate a game plan for your opponent, time to like do things properly? How much of a difference does that make, especially going into a fight of such magnitude?
Oh, you're massive. Well, you'll see. You'll see in 3 weeks' time how much of a difference it makes. Nobody, none of the general public and things like this, apart from folk up here in small hall shows, has ever really seen me properly prepared on this stage. It'll be a totally different kettle of fish in 3 weeks' time here. We're looking to go down here and make a statement. It's not about making up the numbers and all that sort of stuff. You'll see the difference.
On to Chev himself, Olympian, big signing for Matchroom at the time. How do you compare him to Mikel? Because they're almost sort of chalk and cheese in a sense, because Chev's had this extensive amateur career. Some people maybe think he's waited a bit long. I mean, he's 32 and he's only had 5 professional fights, whereas Mikel's almost the complete opposite. He sort of only knows professional boxing.
Yeah.
Going to put you on the spot a wee bit here, David. Who's the better fighter?
No, listen, you're not putting me in the spot at all. Mikel Lawal, I'll go on the record and say in my whole 16 years in and out of boxing gyms, sparring, fighting, Mikel Lawal, is absolutely the hardest puncher I've ever come across in my life. A genetic madness, like when he hit you, it was unbelievable. It was getting hit with a bit of metal. I've never felt anything like it in my life. So that's what Mikel's got going for him. Chev's a totally different animal again. Is he as big a puncher? I very much doubt it. But Chev's the more all-round fighter. This guy's a serious amateur pedigree, much more tools in the locker. I believe a better fighter in terms of technically, much better. I think Mikel Lawal, no disrespect him, but I think he's actually very limited. I think what he's got going for him is just that one punch power sort of stuff. I think I said that in the build up. But Chev Clarke, he's every bit the guy that I was wanting my chance against. Because when I beat Chev Clarke in 3 weeks' time, nobody can take anything away from me. Chev Clarke's not limited. He's the man. He's the man until I'm the man.
100%, mate. You mentioned Chev's amateur pedigree there. It's always a sort of topic of sort of discussion when these, established amateurs turn over pro and the transitional period. What have you made of Chev's transition from the amateurs to the pros? And you're a much more seasoned professional than Chev. Do you see, without giving your game plan away, stuff that you can exploit?
Yeah, definitely. Listen, again, I play the cards close to the chest and things like that, but it'll not matter, because when we get in there and the bell rings, it'll not matter. It'll just be what I do and see how Chev copes. But I think the fact that he's fighting in a British title eliminator and is it his 6th fight is testament to the fact that there's miles on the clock with Chev. You know yourself that the GB squad set up it's a tough ride. These boys are away at sparring camps, they're away fighting, they're constantly in that ring. It's serious miles on the clock for the body, for the brain, for all that sort of stuff. So I think that, and Chev, what age is Chev? Is he 33, 34? he's a bit older than me.
32, I think. Yeah, 32,
Right,
33.
right. So he's only the year older, but he's been in that GB setup for a long time. I think they know that what time is of the essence. If you see what I'm saying, time's not on their side. I think they need to fast track him a wee bit. Hence why he's been they've took the fight with me. I think that there could have been another 2 or 3, even 4 sort of international standard journeymen that come up an easier route. But fair play, they're jumping right in. So I think that says there's some miles in the clock there.
On the cruiserweight division, domestically in general, David, it's one of the hottest divisions in the country. I don't think I'm remiss in saying that. You've got Nicole Bill Smith next week, Isaac Chamberlain still on the scene, Richard Riakporhe, Ellis Zorro coming through over at BT. Does that sort of, you'll obviously be fully focused on Chev on June the 10th, but is it like an added source of motivation, thinking if I can get a win here, like there's infinite possibility of fights for you? And I think there's definitely a place in that mix for a big Scottish cruiserweight.
Oh no, definitely. Just on that note, I go back and forth with Ellis. I got a bit of sparring with Ellis a few months back down in Essex, and we sort of ping messages back and forth. But shout out to Ellis Zorro. That was a tremendous performance.
Incredible knockout.
That in the York Hall was looking like it maybe wasn't going to go his way, and then had to show a bit of grit, a bit of character, and he turned it around with a nice flurry, and then boom, what a highlight reel finish that was. So shout out to Ellis if you're listening, and hopefully we can maybe meet further down the line. But as you say, is there any fights in the top 10 that aren't like mouth watering? These are why you get into boxing. Like, when you're a young man, you dream of being on these big stages and like proper 50-50 fights, as they say. They're all good.
100%. Just last one, David. Just want to get your thoughts on sort of the state of Scottish boxing at the minute. Obviously, on June the 10th, as you mentioned, huge fight for Josh Taylor over in the States against Teofimo Lopez. You've got yourself, you've got Nathaniel Collins, just became British champion, signed with BT. Lee McGregor still on the scene. Some good prospects coming through. Scotty Forrest in the cruiserweight division. Do you think boxing north of the border is in a good place at the minute?
Very good place, yeah. It's just I don't know if we're quite at the point where we'll get big fights filling like the Hydro or the SECC just quite yet. But I think now that maybe the bigger boys like your Frank Warrens, your Eddie Hearns, all these guys are maybe now. I'm not saying they were biased over the years, but you know what I mean? It's very much been like the GB squad set up, and that's the talent pool.
Yeah.
Whereas I think now they realise that, it comes down to money, doesn't it? Let's face it, boxing's first and foremost a business rather than a sport. So it's about bums and seats. But it's the same as you guys over there. The Scots, we'll have a good fight, we'll have a good tear up. So if they can get these boys coming through and start putting the shows on up north of the border, Scottish boxing could be in a really, really good place in 2 or 3 years' time.
Absolutely, and as someone who travels a bit covering the sport, I certainly wouldn't be opposed to a night up in Glasgow or Edinburgh. David, really appreciate you giving us a bit of your time. Great to speak to you again. All the best for June the 10th. I'll be up for the fight week, so looking forward to catching up with you again then, and thanks very much, mate. Cheers.
Right, mate. No, just let me know, mate. That'll be good to get a catch up.
100%, David. Thanks.